everybody, happy Thursday. I hope you're doing well. For those of you that are new, welcome. My name is Susan. I am a freelance fiction editor specializing in science fiction, fantasy, and romance. So this week I want to talk about setting your author business goals. So now when people talk about author business goals, they're generally talking about writing goals. How many words you write in a day, a week, a month. And that is great to pay attention to, and that's one of the things that I've included here. But you do want to think about what your overarching business goals should be for your publishing journey. The ultimate goal is not only to get published, but to be able to continue to write and make it a part-time or full-time career, I'm assuming. If it's not, then you can feel free to skip this video. But if it is, you don't want to hesitate or shy away from looking at this in some respects as a business. So I thought it'd be helpful to walk you through some of the goals that you might want to consider as you're thinking about what you may want to set for either Q2, this year, however you want to structure that, working your way to your main goal. Now, obviously this is going to be a bit general because everybody's in a different place and is working towards a different goal, whether it's getting published for the first time, being traditionally published, self-published, what have you. So I am going to go a little bit general, and I do want to say you don't have to have all of these goals in your goal set. Is that what it would be called? Goal set? You don't have to have all of these goals on your plate all at once. You want to focus on what you need to accomplish. First, you want to structure them. You want to make them identifiable and quantifiable so that you know when you've reached the top of that goal and you can set your next one and keep moving forward. So the first goal, we've already touched on it, is obviously you do want to set your writing goal. I did a whole video on that. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at it, go back and check it out to see how you might want to set that, how you can figure out what you should be writing or what you can write in a day. Everybody is different. The only reason I bring it up again here is A, it should be something that's a part of your goals so that you're keeping yourself accountable and on track, but also because it should be something that you're regularly revising and looking at to see, is this still right for me? Do I want to push myself a little bit more? Should I slow down? Is this right for the season that I'm in? Everything like that. Making sure you're balancing your writing goals and how you're doing with that, as well as with where you want to be in your publishing career and where you're at with life in general. The second goal you want to set is your publishing goal. Again, this is something that you've probably thought of. It's, oh, I want to publish one book by 2022, or oh, I want to do this or that. But you do actually want to set this concretely, so it's something on a piece of paper or on your computer or what have you that you can check off your list, that you can look at and have yourself aiming towards that as you get in the midst of every day, lost in sort of the 1,000 words of your writing goal, everything like that. So whether it's you want to be able to publish your book by a certain year, whether it's you want to increase your publishing budget, whether it's you do want to hire that editor or a cover artist at some point, because those can be pricey endeavors. You want to expand your publishing to include serialization or audio or something like that. There's so much more than just getting published. So depending on where you're at in your career, where you're at on your journey, you do want to think about what you want your current publishing goals and your long-term publishing goals to be, and you want to not only write those down so you can keep an eye on them and know that that's the goal, that's the focus, but also structure all your other goals around that so that you're aiming all those in that same direction to build to that, so that you're helping yourself make that goal by meeting your other goals. The third goal is knowledge goal. This is something that people really only think about when they're struggling, when it's something that they really know they need to improve on or something that they can't figure out how to do. So if you have a draft of your book and the characters really aren't working, you may go find a class on character development, something like that. I really want to encourage you, no matter where you're at in the process, to make sure knowledge is always a goal. Whether it's going to a con and just going to a few panels, whether it's signing up for a class, maybe it's just watching some YouTube videos like this. It doesn't necessarily need to cost money, but you want to make sure you're always continuously learning and trying to improve, whether it be with the publishing business, whether it's with your craft and writing. So there's a lot of books and resources you can check out online through your library, anywhere like that. It's so easy to let time pass quickly, but you want to make sure you're paying attention to this and putting it in your goals regularly so it doesn't slip by and you look back and it's like a year since you've been to a class where you can pay attention to just specifically one thing and how to get better at that, not trying to specifically push yourself towards finishing that one book, because you always want to be getting better, as well as obviously moving towards your publishing goal. So for example, for my goals, I always have that I want to read at least one nonfiction sort of like business or publishing book a month, as well as I do try to take one class of some sort a quarter. So, whether it's a refresher on a copy editing course, whether it's a course that writers usually take so I can find out how and what they're learning so that I can better relate to my authors, anything like that. You want to do something like that where you can continuously learn and improve and be exposed to other people's writings and the way that they learn, way that they write, so that you can learn and better improve yourself. Market goals. So market goals is the next thing that I want to talk about. And by market, I mean what's out there, what's coming out, anything like that. So comps, who's publishing right now books that you absolutely love, books that are similar to what you're writing or what you want to be writing in the future, whether it's something that you're not yet finished with, so maybe it's you haven't finished your book yet, or maybe you're switching genres, or maybe you're going into a new side genre, new subgenre, something like that, where you want to be aware of the market. It's always a good idea to know not only what's out currently, what you're enjoying, but also what's coming. What are the publishing trends? If you're trying to make this a business, if you're trying to make writing a career, you do want to know what's out there, what the state of the market is, what the trends are, whether it's what's coming out currently from the publishers, whether it's what's being published on the indie side of things, or what agents are looking for, what they're acquiring. You want to sort of keep all these things in mind so that you know whether you're going the indie route or the traditional route, you know kind of what is currently popular and what might be popular in the future to try and tailor your publishing journey to that. Now, I do want to add a caveat here to say this is not to tell you to write to the market. If you are not excited about vampires and vampires are what's selling right now, it's probably not going to help you to write a vampire book for two reasons. One is by the time you wrote that vampire book, that trend is probably going to be done. And two is if you're not excited about it, that lack of passion is going to come across in your book. Your readers aren't probably going to connect with it as well because you weren't excited writing it. So why are they going to be excited reading it? The reason I want you to pay attention to the market is because in general, it's just good to know what's going on, but also because most likely you have about 10 to 12 different ideas percolating in your brain, and you're always trying to decide what you should be writing next or what you should be working on, what you should be plotting while you're finishing this novel. And with this, knowing the trends, knowing what might be coming up, being able to see where something is going, knowing that it's becoming popular, maybe you pick the superhero book over the epic fantasy, or maybe you really want to pay attention to historical romance because you saw that Bridgerton just got renewed for a third and fourth season. Very exciting. So if you've had that historical romance in your back pocket, maybe it's time to bring that up. Maybe it's time to start looking at that, writing and editing that to get that ready. So there's strategy to it, but you want to make sure you're still staying true to you and to what you want to write and what your passion is. Next are networking goals. So you're already paying attention to some of this as you do your market research, which is you know who the agents are that are acquiring the things that you like or the things that are like what you're writing. You probably are following the book bloggers and book reviewers, again, that are in your market, that are talking about your genre, as well as other authors and readers. You want to be talking with them and connected with them as much as possible. And I cannot emphasize this enough, on a genuine level. You're not just trying to connect with them to use them for their popular review site or for what they can do for you for an agent, but you have this common interest. So make a connection, start talking with them on social media or outreach and ask to do a virtual cup of coffee or be able to talk with them. That way then maybe you can help them in the the future, if you really love their book, you can help promote that. Or then when your book comes out, maybe they'll be able to give you a blurb or something like that. Even if not though, it's always great to have those connections to be able to learn from, see what they're doing, and have a great connection with someone that is in the same genre and business as you. Finally, sales goals. So sales goals is probably what came to your mind immediately when I said author goals, as far as quarterly, yearly, however you want to set them. And these are important. So you want to find out, all right, who's your ideal reader? You should have somebody in mind, whether it's somebody who is a 34-year-old woman who loves to shop at Target and reads fantasy romance, or whether it's a, 22-year-old guy who loves reading something and he loves going somewhere. I don't know, I'm not a 22-year-old guy. I couldn't tell you what they're interested in if my life depended on it. But whatever works for you, whoever you think of as your ideal reader, your ideal buyer, that's who you want to keep in mind when you're talking about your sales goals, because then the question is, are you reaching them? If you're not, how can you improve on that? So now, when you're setting sales specifically, as I mentioned earlier, you want to make your goals quantifiable. But this one specifically, I generally recommend authors, instead of saying, okay, I want to sell 300 more books next quarter. That's a great goal, and that is something that you can aspire to, but I would infinitely prefer you look at it as a framing of, okay, here's what I've done previously to sell books, and list not how many books you've sold, but what you've done to sell those books, what you feel like has actively worked in pursuing those sales. And then brainstorm what other things you could do that could sell more books. They may work, they may not work, but by quantifying it in that way, where it's activities, it's not just sales, you're going to make those goals more concrete to be able to say, okay, I did this, and this. On these weeks, I had more sales. Maybe you have the analytics to tell, okay, they went to this site, so clearly doing this blog post worked. Or maybe you did this advertising and you saw the advertising analytics and it didn't quite work. So then you're able to figure out new ways to get those sales, not just see, okay, well, I needed 300 more books. How do I do that? It's looking at your sales goals as how can you reach those sales goals through a new approach, not just new numbers. As I mentioned before, you do not need to have all of these things on your author goals list right now. You don't want to overwhelm yourself. So figure out what you want to focus on. Do you want to focus on outreach? Do you want to focus on sales? Do you want to focus on your craft? Do you want to focus on your branding? And then figure out within these goals what works towards that then ultimately works towards your final bigger goal of whatever you want to do publishing wise, whether it's get published for the first time, publish more often, what have you, and connect them like pieces, figuring out how they can lead to one another. I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe below. It really helps the channel. Otherwise, until next week, keep writing.